What is going on, everyone, and welcome to WreckTalk. And today, we're going to talk about in-depth, a very nuanced conversation on why Bill Belichick is not going to work out at North Carolina. Now, nuance is something many college football fans are an enemy of. Like, we like to just say, oh, well, we make this one point. Well, that proves it. I'm right. And then someone's like, well, hold on a second. And they'll make a few other points. Nope, just I overrule you. Not only do I think this is an awful hire for North Carolina, and I legitimately do think this is an awful hire for North Carolina. This could go down as one of the worst head coaching hires of all time in college football. Why do I say that? We're going to get into it. High-level cliff notes. They're way overpaying him. He has zero college football experience. He's never recruited a day in his life. He's 72 years old. And he has an ego that doesn't allow him to listen to good advice when it's presented to him, right? He kind of sucks all the air out of the room. We're doing things Bill's way or the highway. For all those reasons, this is going to be a disaster. But let's get into it. Now, why are people excited about it? If you're a North Carolina fan, why would you be excited about it? Well, it's undeniable. The guy has 8 Super Bowl rings, 6 as a head coach, 2 as an assistant. He's the second winningest NFL head coach of all time. We'll also talk about why that works against you, though. He was a general manager from the Browns in 92-95, general manager of the Patriots from 2000 to 2023. The thing is, it's weird. You don't see that, really. I think that's unique to Bill and the Patriots, that you'd have your general manager and your head coach be the same person. And I think he was such a horse's ass and just impossible to work with that's part of the reason no one wanted anything to do with him. Now, people will say, well, all coaches are horses' asses, right? It matters in this case, though. Yeah, all coaches have massive egos, yada, 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 but not all coaches are just kind of against listening to people who might know more than them. There's one thing for his NFL career that you've got to have some kind of explanation for if you're saying this is a good hire. With Tom Brady's 249 and 75, basically a 77% winning percentage. Greatest of all time. 6 Super Bowls in that span. I mean, never been done before, right? Without Brady, though, he's 83 and 104. Basically a 45% winning percentage. So he had a 32% drop-off without Tom Brady. Why is that? Well, and part of the reason is he ran off the greatest quarterback of all time. Well documented that these guys, Brady wanted to get out of town because Bill Belichick's a guy that just MFs everyone in the room. I could remember listening to people that had played for him, like, man, I ain't never heard a coach talk to his quarterback that way in front of people ever. What is Tom Brady with Bill? Well, we already said it, 77% winning percentage, 249 and 75. Without Bill, he's 37 and 20, basically a 65% winning percentage. Only saw a 12% drop-off, but he won a Super Bowl immediately. And he was in the twilight years of his career. You would expect this to be the opposite based on the quarterback, Tom Brady, being 42 years old. So what is that about? Now, in some sense, you can really set all that aside, the good and the bad, because I don't really think it has anything to do with, other than Bill, some quirkiness that Bill has, but it really doesn't have anything to do with him being a successful head football coach or not. The only thing that college football and the NFL have in common is that they play the game of football with different rules and they pay players. That's it. The intricacies of how they pay players, all of that is completely different. Even the game of football that they play is completely different, right? I talked about this on a live show last night. Offenses have to be simplified in college football because everyone's on a year-to-year thing. You're only guaranteed to have a player for a year. There's 2 portal windows every year, and your roster can flip immediately on any one of those. So you have to have an offense that's simple enough that you could bring in a quarterback in from the portal and he can contribute year one. That is why, quarterbacks that get drafted and play early in their first 2 years do awfully. CJ Stroud's an exception. But there is a laundry list of quarterbacks that played early in the NFL, and it probably ruined their career because they weren't given the time to learn it. I mean, think about all the differences. There's a players' union. There's clear-cut contracts. There's a salary cap. These two things, they might as well be different sports. So just because you're successful or have some success in the NFL does not correlate at all into how you'll do in college, other than there is a correlation that it isn't going to work. That's the clear correlation that you can draw, right? There's a laundry. Think of all the coaches that have failed just going to college, the NFL. Nick Saban, Steve Spurrier, Matt Rule, Urban Meyer. I can think of like 3 coaches that have been successful going college to the NFL. Say Pete Carroll, Jimmy Johnson, and Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is the only one I can think of, and maybe there's a guy from 50 years ago, that established success in the NFL and then went to college. Now, the difference with him, and had success, the difference with him is he started in college. Bill's never coached a down in college football in his life. Never coached a down in college football in his life. Never recruited in his life. And any player that you ask that's played for him, and you ask him, hey, what do you think Bill will be like as a recruiter? They laugh at you. They say he's going to be awful. For Bill to be an effective recruiter, he would have to have a fundamental change in how he approaches players. And that's not in Bill's DNA to do. Bill is who he is. He's not going to fundamentally change how he addresses people. Bill Belichick's the least likely to do that. Why does the age matter? And it is a big drawback. If you're a North Carolina fan or you think this is going to work, you might not want to look at it. College football is a young coach's game. There is a reason, like the head coach at Boston College quits, goes to be a coordinator in the NFL, because it's easier. It's the time you have to spend at your job. It's probably a quarter of what a college football coach has to do. You're recruiting year-round, 365. On average, I looked it up. I mean, you're at least spending 20 to 30 hours recruiting a week, every week of the year. Every week of the year on average, right? And you're recruiting the next 3 classes. Like you're not just recruiting 2025 or 2026 kids. You're recruiting 2027, maybe even 2028 players. That doesn't happen in the NFL. In the NFL, you're preparing for that draft class. It's easier. Here's the other thing. Think about this. Rivalry week is the last week in November. That's your last week of regular season games if you're a college football coach. When is the early signing period? This year, it was 5 days. 5 days between playing your last game and the signing period where you're going to sign the majority of your recruits. In the NFL, it's 14 weeks between your last regular season game and the NFL draft. It's a young man's game. Can you see Bill being on a plane, every weekend or twice a week to go recruit, to go scout players, to go play games, etc.? It's going to be difficult. I don't think Bill, he says he's talked to people. I don't think he has any clue exactly what it's like. It's kind of like saying you think jail sucks and then that, iron bar is closing in front of you. Those are 2 totally different things. The business side of college football, like you've got to meet with donors. There's no salary cap. There's no rules. Maybe that works out for Bill. We know Bill, plays pretty fast and loose with the rules, but nothing's clear cut. Bill's a guy who in the NFL, you build teams and you build organizations. This is something the Coastal Carolina coach said. In college football, you build a roster for that year. That's all you can do with the way that the portal works. And there's 2 portal windows. One that runs from December 9th to the 28th, and then there's another one for 10 days from April 16th to the 25th. So twice a year, your roster could be completely turned upside down. Nothing like that happens in the NFL. Yes, you have 3 months of free agency, but your whole roster isn't up for free agency. In college football, your entire roster is up for free agency every offseason, or not even every offseason, after your last game. The first portal window opens up. So I don't have any confidence that a guy that's 72 years old, and this was something North Carolina fans harped on Mac about, hey, he's too old. College football's passed him by. It's a totally different game. Need a younger guy. I don't have confidence that Bill is going to come in and be one of the few older guys that's going to come in and buck the trend with that. Let's talk about the contract too. I've made several videos about this. I said, you better not be paying this guy more than like $7-8 million a year. Initially, I said it was a 3-year deal. It's come out now that it was a 5-year deal. 3 of it are guaranteed for Bill. So he's going to get $30 million no matter what, but he signed to a 5-year deal, $50 million. There's only 7 coaches in college football that are going to make more than Bill Belichick, who hasn't coached a down of football in his life. Let that sink in. There are only 7 coaches in college football that make more than a guy who's never recruited a player in his life and has never coached a down of college football in his life. For $10 million, shouldn't the absolute bare minimum expectation be a proven winner college football coach? Probably at a Power 4 program too. We're not talking about an up-and-comer group of 5. You should expect for $10 million a year to have a proven winning Power 4 head football coach with a track record of top 15 or top 10 recruiting consistently. You're not getting any of that with Bill. What are you paying for? The hope that the guy can coach college football? That he's going to change his personality to be able to recruit? There's a lot of things you're having to assume for this to work out. Now, evidently, has a $10 million assistant coach pool, $1 million for strength and conditioning, $5.3 for support staff. Evidently, he's bringing in this guy Lombardi from the NFL, $13 million in revenue sharing. And look, it's been reported, they have $20 million in NIL offerings or whatever. And I'm not saying they don't. My whole problem with that is, it's not even a North Carolina fan, how do you even verify that? Like as a Georgia Tech fan, couldn't I just say, oh yeah, Georgia Tech, they have a $25 million NIL offering. I heard it. How would you even prove me wrong? None of this is out in the open, in the disinfectant of sunlight. So let's just take it for face value that they have that. Most players that have played for Bill say he's a difficult guy, wasn't fun. If grown men in the NFL have issues with Bill, in other words, to the point that they're willing to leave the organization and win a Super Bowl somewhere else, in Tom Brady and even in Gronkowski, how do you think that's going to work with prima donnas in college football? Yeah, you might bring in some good players if you do have a $20 million NIL offering. But they're going to leave as soon as they can. You might have people come in this early portal period and leave in the second portal period in April. They want nothing to do with it. $10 million to a guy that's never coached college football is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I don't think anyone other than North Carolina, and I guess Colorado. Well, Dion at least, I need to make a video eating crow on that, and I will. But Dion had at least coached college football. He had been in an HBCU. It makes no sense. Lastly, what he said in his press conference tells me this isn't going to work out. Again, Bill is who he is. Bill's not going to come in here and be some different guy that changes his mold to fit the atmosphere of college football. You cannot tell me that's who Bill Belichick is. All right. First of all, he just flat out lied to people, right? Oh, it's my dream job. He says, I always wanted to coach in college football, and it just never really worked out. I had some good years in the NFL, so that was okay. But this is really kind of a dream come true. Do you guys find it A strange coincidence that the minute that no one wants anything to do with Bill Belichick in the NFL, all of a sudden his dream is to coach at North Carolina. Isn't that a weird coincidence? I don't believe a word of that. And a lot of this is to quell fears of like, oh, I'm here for the long haul. I'm here for the long haul. Why does he have to say that? Because he can leave and break this contract after his first year for only $1 million. Keep in mind, he's 14 wins away from being the winningest NFL head coach of all time. If he comes in and has immediate success at North Carolina and there's an NFL team that will hire him, he's gone. He's gone in 1 year. In other words, there's not a scenario where this works out. If it doesn't work out, obviously it's a bad hire for North Carolina. If it does, he's gone, and he doesn't have to pay anything, basically. He only has to pay $1 million out of a $50 million deal and $30 million guaranteed. So he can leave in 1 year for $1 million. If you want to fire him after the first year, it's going to cost you basically $30 million. The $10 million you paid him for that year and the $20 million remaining on his guaranteed part of his deal. Can someone tell me how this makes sense to you? If you're a North Carolina fan, I'm asking, make sense of this to me. What else did he say? Well, Bubba Cunningham made a statement. We know that college athletics is changing, and those changes require new and innovative thinking. That's why we hired someone who's 72 and has never coached in college football. Bill Belichick is a football legend. He's an NFL legend. And hiring him to lead our program represents a new approach that will ensure Carolina football can evolve, compete, and win today and in the future. In the future, the guy's 72 years old, never coached college football. It's wishful thinking. If you're someone who thinks the Bill Belichick thing is going to work out, it's not based on any evidence that we can find in the past or what I've presented, or that you can find. It's going to be on a hope and a prayer that somehow he becomes a different person when it pertains to players, and he can figure out college football on the fly. And he did try and quell some of that. You know what he said basically in response to he's never coached college football? Well, I talked to people about it. You know, I went to some practices my son was at Washington. I talked to other college football coaches. And you know what else happened? He talked about his dad, who evidently had coached at North Carolina at one point. And I'm not making this up. You know that the criticism behind this hire is his age. They literally pull up a program, like a media guide from the 50s, from when his dad was there. It's like foreshadowing, right? Maybe not foreshadowing, but it's tipping the end of this story that it's not going to work out. He says, college came to me this year. I didn't go seek it out. Meanwhile, he's been calling everyone trying to get hired after the New England. Think about what must have happened for New England to part ways with Bill Belichick when he won 6 Super Bowls for him. Probably a dozen coaches asked to talk with me about certain things like salary cap, which, by the way, doesn't exist in college football, headsets, 2-minute warning, sideline tablets. So, I talked to some people, and there's a 2-minute warning, and they communicate the same way as the NFL. So, lateral move, right? Imagine this. Imagine going on a job interview and saying like, oh, you're trying to give me like entry-level pay. I need senior level pay. And they say, well, you don't have any experience at the job. There's no way we can give you senior level pay. What justifies that? And you say, I talked to some people that do the job, though. I watched them a little bit for a few days. That's what Bill's doing. This is not going to work out. He's too old. He's not going to evolve to the way college football, the landscape of college football. He's going to run players off. One thing that'll be really telling is who he gets on his staff, because the people that he has on his staff have to be proven college football guys that can recruit. More important on whether his OC and DC can actually coach football, they got to be able to recruit first and foremost to make up for Bill's lack of it. So that'll be telling as to who he gets on his staff. But look, like I said, I think this is going to be one of the worst coaching hires of all time. They already hired that guy who was so bad. Jeff Collins was so bad. And I tried to tell him, and I'm trying to tell you now, you didn't listen to me with him. Listen to me here. I'm telling you the truth. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Y'all have a good one.